We booked the trip back in March. There were 4 of us: me, Jordan, Lexi, and Bree. We'd known each other since college, and we'd been talking about doing a girls' trip for years. After all the crap from the last couple years, layoffs, breakups, burnout, it finally felt like the right time. Hawaii had always been the dream, specifically Oahu. We found a deal on a shared Airbnb right near Waikiki Beach, a little place up on the 3rd floor of a residential building. It wasn't super fancy, but it was clean, had working AC, and was a short walk to the beach. That's all we really cared about. We got there on a Sunday afternoon, a little jet-lagged, but too excited to care. We dropped our stuff, changed into swimsuits, and hit the beach before sunset. I still remember how the water felt that first day. Warm, gentle, just salty enough to taste it on your lips. We took photos, passed around White Claws we'd smuggled down in a tote bag, and laughed until our cheeks hurt. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. I think it was Lexi who noticed him first. A guy standing off near the rocks by the far edge of the beach, not moving, not playing with a phone, not talking to anyone, just watching. "Creeper alert," she muttered under her breath, nudging Jordan and me with her elbow. We all turned, casually, trying not to be obvious. He was maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark t-shirt and jeans despite the heat, pale, thin, with a close buzz cut and something off about his posture. Too stiff. His arms hung at his sides, unmoving. We tried not to let it kill the vibe, but the mood shifted. We joked about it, gave him dumb nicknames like Beach Ghost or Creepzilla, but we didn't forget him. Every time we glanced over, he was still there, watching. After an hour or so, he left, just turned and walked up the hill, disappearing behind a row of palm trees and beach shacks. We talked about it that night over drinks back at the Airbnb. Bree said he was probably just a loner or a weirdo who didn't know how to socialize. "We're not that interesting," she laughed, sipping a beer. Maybe he thought we were influencers or something. We tried to laugh it off, and honestly, for the next few days, we did. Monday, we rented a Jeep and drove up to the North Shore. Tuesday, we went snorkeling, and Lexi got sunburned so bad she had to stay in with aloe all night. Wednesday, we hiked Diamond Head and got caught in a surprise downpour that soaked us head to toe. The whole week was full of those little disasters that make a trip memorable. It felt like a dream vacation, until Thursday night. It was our last night before flying back. We decided to go out with a bang, get dressed up, have dinner somewhere nice, and then hit a local bar for drinks and dancing. We ended up at this low-lit bar tucked between 2 surf shops, the kind of place with sticky floors, neon signs, and a live band playing off-key covers of 2000s pop songs. We loved it. We were 3 drinks in when Lexi leaned toward me and said, "Don't freak out, but I think that guy's here." I looked around the room slowly. There were couples near the bar, a group of loud guys in Hawaiian shirts by the stage, a few solo drinkers near the back, and then I saw him. Same guy, dark shirt, buzzed hair, just standing near the edge of the dance floor with a drink he wasn't sipping, staring. I felt my stomach drop. I don't know why. It wasn't like he'd done anything, but seeing him again made my skin crawl. "Maybe he's a local," Jordan offered. "It's a small island. Or maybe he's following us," Lexi said, half joking but not really. Bree, of course, tried to diffuse the tension. She was the friend who always wanted to keep things fun. "He's probably harmless," she said. "Honestly, kind of hot in a creepy way." That was Bree for you. Flirty, fearless, always the first one to talk to strangers on a night out. An hour later, she was gone. We didn't notice at first. We'd been dancing, shouting over the music, throwing back shots. But when the lights came up for last call, I looked around and didn't see her. "Where's Bree?" I asked. Jordan frowned. "Wasn't she with you?" "No, she was just here. She was..." I turned in a circle, searching. "She was dancing with that guy." Lexi's face went pale. We looked outside. The bar was emptying out. No sign of Bree, no sign of him. We tried calling her, of course, straight to voicemail. Texts went unanswered. At first, we assumed she'd just left with him. That was something she'd done before. Spontaneous, no-warning hookups weren't unusual for her. It wasn't like her to vanish completely, but it wasn't unthinkable either. We Ubered back to the Airbnb and tried to stay awake, waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Bree had left her purse behind, and her phone. Her ID was still in the clutch she'd been carrying earlier. The only thing missing was her and her room key. By morning, she still hadn't come back. We reported her missing later that afternoon. The Honolulu police took it seriously. I'll give them that. They asked all the usual questions. We gave them a description of the guy, told them what bar we were at, what time we last saw her. They pulled security footage from the bar and the surrounding area. They confirmed Bree left with him around 11:30 p.m., but after that, nothing. The guy didn't show up on footage from any nearby cameras. No traffic cams, no gas stations, no ATM footage. It was like they just disappeared into the night. We ended up extending our trip by 2 days. I didn't want to leave without knowing something. Anything. But there were no updates. The police said there was no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle, and technically, Bree was an adult who had willingly left the bar with a man she was seen dancing with. The case stayed open, but cold. I flew home sick with guilt. Jordan cried on the plane. Lexi refused to speak to anyone for days. We couldn't bring ourselves to look at the photos we'd taken on the trip. They felt cursed somehow, like a record of something we never should have done. A week after getting home, I got a DM on Instagram from a fake-looking account. No followers, no posts, just a generic username. It said, "You shouldn't have watched." Then it disappeared, deleted. I didn't get a screenshot in time. I reported it, but it didn't lead anywhere. That night, I went through our photos again. I don't know why. I guess I hoped I'd see something I missed. And that's when I found it. In one of the selfies we took on the beach, maybe our second day, I saw him, the man. He was in the background, blurry, almost out of frame, lying on a towel under a tree, sunglasses on, book in hand, pretending to be just another tourist. But he was there. The next photo, same tree. He was sitting up now, facing us. The next day, outside the shaved ice place we'd stopped at in Halewa, reflection in the window behind Jordan. Later, at the trailhead before we hiked Diamond Head, a man in the parking lot, half turned away, wearing the same shirt he'd worn at the beach. He'd been following us the whole week. We'd just never noticed. I gave the photos to the police, but they said there wasn't enough detail. No clear face shots, no license plates, no names, nothing to go on. Lexi thinks he was trafficking her. That Bree's probably not even in the country anymore. Jordan thinks she's dead, buried somewhere in the jungle or dumped in the ocean. Me? I think he picked her. From the beginning. I think he watched us on the beach and waited. I think he learned our routines, where we went, how we talked, who would be the easiest to separate. I think he followed us, not just on the island, but online. Maybe even before we got there. And I think he's done it before. Bree was smart. She was careful, but she was trusting. And when he smiled at her across the dance floor, she smiled back. We left Hawaii without her, and we'll never get her back. I thought I was doing something smart. After everything that went wrong, my marriage falling apart, getting laid off, the panic attacks, I figured, screw it. I'll get away for a bit. Somewhere quiet, no noise, no people. Somewhere I could just breathe. I found this place on a travel forum, way at the bottom of some thread titled Retreats for Remote Workers Who Hate Tourists. It had pictures of a sleek, glass-walled villa perched on a cliff somewhere in Montenegro. Forest behind it, ocean in front. The caption read, "No neighbors, no crowds, total privacy." I stared at that post for like an hour. Messaged the guy who listed it. His username was Valter89. He replied fast. Chill vibe. Said the villa was built into the cliffs near a town called Sveti Luka. Said it didn't really have an address, but he could meet me in town and drive me up. Looking back, that should have been the first red flag. But at the time, it felt perfect. I flew into Podgorica, then took 2 buses that got sketchier the farther I went. Sveti Luka was tiny, stone buildings, some cafes, a couple old guys smoking under a tarp. Real old-world coastal town. I stood by the statue in the square like he told me to, waiting with my bag. People stared. No one said anything. At 3:06 p.m., an old blue car pulled up. Out stepped Valter. Late 30s, buzzed hair, mirrored sunglasses, wearing an open button-up like he just came from a yacht. He smiled, shook my hand, helped with my bag. Said, "You're gonna love it up there. No one around for miles." The drive up was long. No signs, no houses, no cell signal. The road wound through trees and cliffs, gravel crunching under the tires. Finally, we turned a corner and there it was. This cold, modern-looking villa made of concrete and glass stuck right into the mountainside. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a drop so steep it made my stomach twist. No mailbox, no number, just there. Inside, it looked like no one had ever lived in it. A mug in the cabinet, one towel in the bathroom, a few groceries already on the counter. It felt set-dressed, like a showroom. I asked if anyone stayed here before. Walter just said, not for long. Then he got in his car and left. The first couple of nights were good. I drank wine, stared at the sea, wrote in my journal. Just me and the wind in the trees. It felt like I'd actually made the right choice. But on the third night, just after midnight, I heard something. Crunch, one footstep, like someone walking on the gravel outside. I froze, waited, looked out the window. Nothing. I told myself it was a deer or a wild dog. Probably nothing. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same sound. Crunch, pause, silence. So I set my phone on the windowsill, hit record, and went to bed. The next morning, I played it back. First minute, wind in the trees. Minute 2, faint movement. Then, clear as day, footsteps on gravel. Then, breathing, right up against the glass. And one more sound just before the recording ends. Click, like a camera shutter. I searched the villa. Every vent, every corner. That's when I found the cameras. There was one hidden inside the wall behind the microwave, another in the bathroom, buried in the vent, one tucked inside the smoke detector above the bed. Tiny black lenses, all pointed inward. I ripped them out, hands shaking. My heart was hammering in my chest. And then I realized I didn't know how to leave. There was no car, no signal, no Wi-Fi. The road we came up wasn't marked. I didn't even know which direction the town was in. All I could do was wait. The next night, I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard the crunching again, closer, slower. I crept to the curtain, peeked out. Walter was standing outside, same mirrored sunglasses, black shirt, smiling. He didn't move, didn't knock. He just looked up toward the house, toward where the bedroom camera used to be, and then he walked away. By morning, my food was almost gone. I was shaking, exhausted. And then, around 10 a.m., a knock on the glass. It was a woman, blonde, mid-30s, backpack, hiking boots. She smiled when she saw me, real friendly. Said her name was Irina. Said she was hiking the woods, saw the villa, was surprised anyone was staying there. At first, I didn't trust her, but she seemed normal, human. I told her everything, about the cameras, the man, the footsteps at night. She listened and said, that's messed up, but I know these woods. I can get you to a trail. My car's parked at the bottom. I didn't have a better option, so I followed her. We walked for maybe 30 minutes, through thick trees, no trail, just dirt and branches. I kept asking how much farther. She'd say, almost there. Eventually, we reached a clearing, and that's when I knew something was wrong. There was no car, no road, just a black SUV parked on dry leaves. I turned to her, confused, and she wasn't smiling anymore. Then, from behind a tree, Walter stepped out. Same sunglasses, same smile. He didn't say anything. I ran. I didn't stop running until my lungs were about to burst. Branches tore up my arms. My jeans ripped open at the knees. I ran downhill, through brambles, dirt, slipping and crawling. Hours later, I stumbled into a road and flagged down a delivery van. The driver barely spoke English, but he drove me to the next town. I burst into the local police station, babbling like a lunatic. They didn't even look surprised. One officer told me calmly that there were no villas permitted on the mountain. No man named Walter lived there. I hadn't seen what I thought I saw. When I pushed, they got colder. The officer leaned in and said, open quote, if you're smart, you'll forget this place. People don't come back from there. Close quote. Back home, I started digging. The original forum post? Gone. The user? Deleted. Reverse image searches on the villa photos? Nothing. I reached out to an old contact, a cybercrime reporter I knew. I told her the whole story. She called me 2 days later and said, open quote, there's a network doing this. Eastern Europe. They rent out remote vacation homes to solo female travelers. Villas like the one you stayed in? They're rigged with surveillance, cameras, mics, sometimes even secret crawl spaces. Close quote. I didn't say anything. She went on. Open quote. Once they've studied you, learned your schedule, figured out your weaknesses, they either abduct you or sell footage of you to the highest bidder. Real-time surveillance, even live streams. Close quote. Has anyone been caught? I asked. She hesitated. Open quote. No. The locals stay quiet, and the women who disappear, most of them don't have anyone looking for them. close quote. 3 months later, I saw the villa again. Not in real life. Online. Same photos, new username, new listing. This time, the location said Croatia. And the caption? Open quote, quiet work retreat. No address. Host will meet you in town. If you see a listing like that, don't book it. If someone says they'll meet you in town and the house has no address, no neighbors, and no past reviews, run, because they're not renting to you. They're hunting you. I booked the Airbnb because it looked like something out of a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows, forest all around, and this perfect rustic modern blend. Wood beams, concrete counters, big fireplace. It was just secluded enough that you felt off-grid, but close enough to town that we could go out for dinner or grab groceries without it turning into a survival trek. My boyfriend Evan and I had been overdue for a getaway. Life had been loud lately. Work stress, bills, the usual arguments about nothing and everything. This was supposed to be our reset button. 4 days in a quiet cabin in Northern California. No phones, no laptops, just wine, hikes, and sleep. We arrived on a Thursday. The host had left a lockbox code and a welcome note on the kitchen island. It was warm in a way that didn't feel forced. Handwritten, some local restaurant suggestions, a bottle of red wine with 2 glasses. The house was spotless, cozy, peaceful. We dropped our bags in the master bedroom and immediately headed into town to grab some food and do a little walking. We didn't spend much time at the cabin that first day. Same for the second. We were out most of the time, hiking trails, antique shops, just enjoying not being on a schedule. By the time we'd get back in the evenings, it was dark and we were wiped out. We'd cook a little, pour a drink, and fall asleep watching some trashy Netflix show. But by the third day, we noticed something weird. It was subtle, easy to write off. I was brushing my teeth when I realized my overnight bag, just a small black duffel, was zipped shut. I never close it fully. I keep it halfway zipped so I can grab stuff easily. But now it was zipped all the way and moved to the corner of the room near the wall. I thought maybe Evan had tripped over it and shoved it aside. "Hey, did you move my bag?" I asked, still half spitting toothpaste into the sink. He poked his head into the bathroom. "What? No, why?" I held up my toothbrush. It was zipped and shoved over. I didn't do that. He looked at it, shrugged. Maybe the cleaning crew came in or something? They only come after we leave. We both paused, made eye contact. Then we laughed. "Whatever," I said. "Doesn't matter." We cooked that night, ate dinner on the deck, and settled in with a bottle of wine and a bad thriller. It really didn't feel like a big deal, until we went to bed. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up. At first, I didn't know what had jolted me. No noise, no dream I could remember. But I sat up, heart beating faster than it should have been. Evan was still asleep beside me, snoring softly. The bedroom door was open, just like we'd left it. And then I saw it, a silhouette. Someone was standing in the doorway, barely visible in the dim light from the hallway. I couldn't see their face, just a human shape, tall, still, unmistakably watching us. I screamed. Not a startled yell, a full, panicked, from-the-gut scream. Evan jerked upright, gasping, and grabbed my arm. "What? What's happening? There's someone!" I pointed at the door, but the figure was gone. The hallway was empty. I jumped out of bed and backed against the wall. Evan grabbed his phone and dialed 911 while I locked the bedroom door and shoved a dresser in front of it. He had to repeat the address twice because the signal was bad and the dispatcher kept asking him to speak up. While he was on the phone, I scanned the room for anything we could use to defend ourselves. I found a fire poker next to the fireplace and shoved it into his hands. He still looked half asleep and confused, but he nodded. "Police are on the way," he said. 10 minutes, maybe less. We waited. Neither of us moved. Every sound felt amplified. The wind brushing against the windows, a creak in the floor, the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I was shaking. Then we heard something from the back of the house. A soft thump. Evan looked at me. That wasn't the front door. He raised the poker like a baseball bat and moved the dresser. I stayed behind him as we crept into the hall. The lights were still off. Everything was quiet. We checked the living room, the kitchen, nothing. But then, near the laundry room, we noticed something strange. There was a wall panel in the hallway, a narrow vertical seam, maybe 6 feet high, almost invisible in the dim light. If we hadn't been scanning the walls, we might have missed it entirely. But what caught our attention was the faint sliver of light leaking through the edge, like someone had closed a door that didn't shut all the way. Evan reached for it slowly, pressed a hand against the panel. It clicked and opened. Behind it was a narrow passage, no drywall, no tile, just raw wooden beams and stairs leading down into a space under the house. It was pitch black, except for a single hanging bulb that flickered near the bottom. I whispered no, we should wait for the police. But Evan was already stepping inside. The air in the passage was different. Damp, stale. It smelled like mold and something else, something bitter and chemical. We moved slowly, quietly. Each step groaned under our feet. The stairs led down into a small room, maybe the size of a walk-in closet. The bulb above us swung gently, like it had just been nudged. There were no windows, no furniture, just a low table with a laptop on it, and a mattress on the floor, used, stained. Next to it was a pile of things. Snacks, water bottles, what looked like a small collection of women's items. Hair ties, lip balm, a makeup bag. I recognized the brand. I had the same kind. The laptop was still open. Evan stepped over and touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. There were video feeds, live feeds, one from the kitchen, one from the living room, one from our bedroom, another from the bathroom. I stared at the screen, throat closing. I couldn't even speak. Someone had been watching us. Not just recently. The footage folder on the desktop went back at least 2 months, labeled by guest names and dates. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Evan muttered, "What the fuck?" I grabbed his arm. "We need to go." We bolted back up the stairs and locked the passage behind us. The police arrived 10 minutes later. We told them everything. Showed them the door, the footage, the mattress. They were calm. Too calm. One of the officers looked at us and said, "You two should probably pack up and find a hotel tonight. We'll handle this." That was it. We asked if they were going to contact the owner of the Airbnb, and they said they already had. When we pushed for more, the other officer just said, "We've been called to this property before." That line stuck with me. Before. We left that night and checked into a Holiday Inn near the airport. I didn't sleep. I kept picturing that person standing in our doorway. How long had they been down there? Had they been there the whole time? A few days later, I went to check the listing on Airbnb. It was gone. Completely wiped. No trace of it. Even the host's profile had been deleted. I emailed Airbnb support. They said the property had been removed for violating safety policies and wouldn't say anything else. I dug around for news articles, police reports, nothing. It's like none of it happened. We've tried to move on, sort of. But I can't unsee that room, that mattress, that screen. I still check every Airbnb I book, every cabinet, every wall panel, because someone was living inside that house. Watching, waiting, and no one stopped them.